In this episode, Grant and I discuss Chapter 3 of the Sam Harris book, Waking Up. This chapter focuses on what is the self. What do you think it is? You can change your identity, but who in your mind is observing that change happening? Who or what is observing your thoughts? It's a wonderful rabbit hole to play in and totally worth it. Yo, what's up, guys? We're back here. Chapter 3, Sam Harris book, Waking Up. Oh, I checked Spotify today. There's like about 3 or 4 other podcasts also reviewing like chapter by chapter.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Did you
right.
give him a listen?
Not yet, not yet. I just saw them just before meeting up with you right here.
Cool. It'd be good to give them a listen, see if there's any similarities.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Dang, so this chapter 3 was all about the self, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like in the other episodes that we recorded, we kind of were getting into that topic, but this time we had to actually read
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, definitely. It's also quite funny because the book is about learning spirituality
Mm-hmm.
without religion, and it's heavy focus on meditation. But
Mm.
we've just finished chapter 3. We're over halfway, and it's like just starting to touch on meditation now.
Yeah.
Um, which is kind of it's been really interesting because like more than half the book is more about how your brain works as opposed to chapter 4, which is coming, which is meditation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like maybe spirituality is just like questioning what the self is, and then meditation is like a tool to help with that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that could be accurate.
So then like Harris is arguing that the self is not a fixed thing. So
Hmm.
then yeah, what do you think is the self?
So I think the classic sense of the self is I, me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the idea is that through meditation, it's not a fixed thing because you can change how you see yourself and how you interact with the world. He
Mm.
said something like, when there are when there are other people around and they're looking at you, it's not that you're being self-conscious, it's that they're conscious of you as well,
Yeah.
which I thought was quite funny. Yeah.
Yeah, self-conscious is like what being conscious that someone else is being conscious of you, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also this reminds me of the book Atomic Habits, because like in that book, the author, I think it's James Clear, he suggests that like a way to change your habit is to change your identity. So like for example, like if you want to wake up early, but you've always
Mm,
like identified as like I'm not a morning person, that then you can just choose to change that identity, and then you will see like an actual physical change in your life.
interesting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of I've actually got Atomic Habits somewhere here. I haven't
Mm,
read it yet, but I'm gonna read it. But yeah, when you're in this world of like consuming this sort of material, there's so much overlap, I find.
yeah. That's literally why I started this podcast, like to find that overlap, because that overlap keeps coming up, and it's like
Mhm, mhm.
I'm just obsessed with finding that overlap.
Yeah, because you were saying like you're not a morning person, but then you can decide I am now a morning person. I was actually listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about this guy who does like pretty difficult exercise, and if he sets himself a goal, like I'm going to run 20 miles today, even if he has to like limp the last 5 miles, he still does it because if he stops at 15, then he starts to tell himself the narrative like, oh, I'm the person that quits.
Hmm.
Whereas if
Yep.
he forces himself to do it, he is that person that always completes the goals.
Right. And it's kind of like whatever you believe is real actually feels real, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think even like you showed me this during our workout, like if you believe the weights are heavier than they actually are, then they feel heavier, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's all such a mental thing. Like you think
Yeah.
that exercise and lifting weights is all about physical body and how strong you are.
Mm.
But it's so mental. Like you can definitely lift that amount of weight, especially if you do a consistent workout plan because you know you've lifted it before. But sometimes if you're in a negative headspace or you're just feeling like I'm tired, I'm not feeling this, the weights just feel so much heavier and you get fewer reps. Whereas
Mm.
sometimes you're really looking forward to it. Maybe you've slept well, you've had a good meal a couple of hours before, you feel strong. It's the same kind of weight. It's just all about how you're letting your thoughts and how you feel affect you, which then comes out into how strong your physical body is.
Yeah. Like, do you think it's possible that the self is just whoever you think you are in that moment,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
and that in another moment that could be changed?
Yeah, and you have different sides to the self as well. Like depending on your surroundings,
Mm.
like depending on who you're interacting with. Like there's a self that you would have when you speak to, I don't know, like your grandma, you'd speak to her in a certain sort of way and show her a certain sort of way. And then there's
Mm.
a certain sort of self when you're with peers as well.
Mm. Then maybe in that case, like yourself is like I guess that's like the face you show, like kind of how they say in Japanese or in Japan that like there's a face people show to society, a face people show to their friends, a face people show to their family, and one that only they know.
It's true. It's real true. Yeah. And I think as well we try and curate the self as well, don't we? Like only we know our true selves because we don't put everything out there. We try and curate this version of ourselves that we want other people to see and perceive of us.
Mm. Yeah, like we show, I guess, what's convenient in that time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But so then, okay, so then like the question in spirituality would be like, okay, so let's say I have all these different faces, I'm molding and remolding and adjusting myself. So who's doing the adjusting?
Yeah. I mean, I think as well with spirituality, it comes to accepting yourself more. Like when it comes to putting on different fronts and trying to curate this sense of self, I think through spirituality, you can come to accept your true self more. And you don't really have to say like, oh, I want to present this version of myself to people. It's more just like I'm comfortable with who I am. Spirituality has helped me get there amongst other things. And this is
Mm.
this is me, this is my true self.
Kind of, oh, like not judging yourself, basically.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That does make sense. I think somebody in spirituality would say, like, of course I'm not judging myself because that's not even me.
Yeah, yeah. Then you go down that crazy rabbit hole where you're like, wait, who am I?
Exactly. Yeah. Because then it's kind of like okay, so let's say like I'm modifying myself, like I'm changing my identity and stuff, but like who is observing this change happening? Because
Mhm.
the observer is not being changed, right? The observer is always turned on for some reason that we can't
Yeah,
explain.
well, I mean that kind of relates to what he was saying about you're almost observing yourself and you have that internal dialogue and
Mm.
you always talk to yourself in your own mind. You have conversations with yourself like, oh, there's that thing I left over there.
Mm.
And you, oh, I've got to go to lunch with someone soon. But if you started speaking those out loud, like people would think you're absolutely insane. But
Mm-mm.
everyone has that internal dialogue.
Somebody in spirituality would say, like, okay, so there's that internal dialogue going on, but is the observer the one saying that, or is the observer observing the dialogue?
Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of like when you meditate, right? Like you hear your own thoughts talking about whatever
Mhm.
random, but the observer is just like the one, like almost like you're watching clouds go by or something. It's like clouds of thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
So it looks like in spirituality, and not like not everyone, but there's some people who will go down the rabbit hole enough to where like they could identify their true self as just that thing that's observing whatever that is. Like we're not sure what that is, but there's
Mhm.
that thing that's observing all the thoughts and all of that. Like maybe that's the true self is what some people believe.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's hard to know who your true self is as well sometimes because
Mm.
it's confusing to even know. You know, you have conflicting thoughts and one minute you desire something, one minute you desire something else. Your mind changes on stuff, so it's really hard to pin down.
And now we know that each side of our brain wants different things.
Yeah, like if we don't even know, yeah, if we don't even know who our true self is, how do we expect to be our true self to other people?
Right. That's true. And I think there's some cases when people have been like in a state of performance for others for so long that they actually they're not even sure who they actually are.
Right. And I suppose that comes down to almost you're almost subconsciously doing that thing where you're like, I'm not a morning person, now I am. You're
Mm,
subconsciously just pleasing others or trying to put an image of across of yourself that you actually do it for so long that you become that person anyway.
mm. What's trippy about this for me is that there's some beliefs that we have about ourselves that are like buried so far in our mind that we might not be aware of in this moment. But
Oh yeah.
it still causes us
Yeah.
to behave in
Some of
certain
that shit
ways.
from like childhood. You might have had some experience when you were like five and now, that's the perception you have going forward as well.
Right. Like into adulthood.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's affected me in my relationships as an adult.
Hmm. Yeah. And like sometimes you just get those feelings like, oh, I don't like that person, or like I don't like this, or I really like this, and you're not even sure where it came from. You can't really remember that thing that triggered it for you when you were a kid, but maybe something did, and
Right.
that's why you just have like a quick decision about something.
Right. It's like your nervous system is like saying just like, hey, that's dangerous, so you shouldn't like that. But it's like so like buried so deeply in us that it's hard to pinpoint sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how do you think meditation could be helpful for this?
I don't know. I guess that's more for chapter 4. Um, but I think it just kind of declutters your mind a little bit. Um,
Mm,
I think it's just a space for you to be aware and ponder these things because um, we're always thinking. He talks about this in the book as well. We're
mm,
always thinking. You can't not ever think. But if you're not meditating, you're always thinking about like something you're doing, a task you've got to do or something that happened in the past. You're making up imaginary scenarios. You're having imaginary conversations that you should have had previously that you're gonna have. You're making food, you're doing all this shit. Whereas meditation is just a time for you to like slow down and reflect. And then you can
mm,
start to have these questions, why did I do that? Or why do I want to do this? Why do I
mm,
feel like this? Um, how can I resolve this? When you always have too much stimulation, um,
mm.
you just don't have that time to sit to think and question.
Right. I've heard of some people will meditate with their eyes open, but they'll just like sit down and stare at a wall.
Yeah, I mean, there's different forms of meditation as well, and you can get the same
Yeah.
results from some
Right.
things. I even when I'm running, like if I'm running for, I don't know, 40 minutes and I don't have any music or podcasts or anything, you're just thinking, that's almost like an active form of meditation.
Yeah.
Um, because you're just in that kind of state of you can really mull over your thoughts. And so yeah, whether I think each different things to work for different people as well. Like meditation's
Yeah.
effective. Some people just find it. I think everyone to begin with finds it difficult to sit still. I know I do. It's something that I still have nowhere near mastered. Like anything more than 10 minutes of meditation for me, I start to get antsy. But if you can do something
Mm,
else as well, like running or active meditation and staring at something, whatever works. Just I think it's just important just to have some time just to do nothing, to have no stimulation, just be alone with your thoughts.
mhm. Like, do you think like meditation is just like a synonym for like being present? Like just anything that keeps you present?
100%, 100%. And that also goes back to, how we were saying, like, if you consume this sort of stuff, like it all overlaps. Like so many things like I read and listen to say, like, if you're living in the past, like you're going to be depressed or anxious or whatever, same as if you're living in the future.
Hmm.
Um, but being in the present is the key to being more content and more fulfilled.
Yeah. I wonder what the
And
hell is.
also, Sam Harris mentioned in this chapter that the majority of people go through life, is it like feeling slightly sad or something like that on a day-to-day basis?
Mm,
Um, and I think to get out of that, because it happens to all of us. Like sometimes I just wake up and I'm a bit like, "Ugh, it's just one of those shitty days today." But
mm,
having the awareness to question, and I think meditation or running or something like that, why am I feeling like this? What's causing me to feel it? Because if you just continue to go about your day, you know, masking it or getting annoyed at things, it doesn't. It stays around all day. But if you can
yeah.
take some time just to think what's causing this and identify it, you're like, oh, okay. Then you can kind of move past it.
Right. It feels like, yeah, when you like wake up and say like, well, it's gonna be a crappy day, like, and but you don't do anything about it, like it just like builds up, right? It just keeps
Yeah, and
building
it's
up.
self-fulfilling as well. Like if you
Exactly.
wake up in a bad mood, um, and then you take that energy into your interactions with people, and then they're going to pick up on that energy, and then it's just going to you're going to get into this cycle then of oh, everything's pissing me off today, all my interactions are shit, this
Yeah.
traffic's annoying, this food is shit, and then you just let it kind of spiral.
Yeah. I was talking about this recently with my coworker Marcus. Shout out to Marcus. Because this came up in a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, where like the author is saying, like, for example, if you wake up in the morning and say like, oh, this is gonna be a shitty day, then like throughout the day, you're going to look for evidence to prove that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So then what if we can actually just choose what evidence to look for?
I mean, you can choose because you can choose to say, well, actually, this is going to be a good day, even if you wake up feeling kind of shitty.
Right?
Um, and somehow I addressed this a little bit when he was saying, if something bad happens to you, a good way to move past that is think, well, it could be way worse. Um,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's
be
true.
grateful that it's not way worse, rather than thinking, oh, why did this happen to me? This is so shit. Um, And then it's also like again, this links to some stuff with stoicism, like when it comes to anger.
Yeah.
Like you're only angry when something immediately happens to you for a couple of seconds. If you let it piss you off all day, it's because you just keep going over it in your head and thinking of different scenarios. Oh, I should have said this and it would have been different. Oh, I can't believe they did this. You're only
Mm,
angry for a few seconds because you keep revisiting it so much.
yeah,
You let it make you angry all day.
that's true. Like we're just holding on to that event.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing that made you angry has forgot about you. They're not even thinking about it,
Yeah.
and you're just like it's almost like you're punishing yourself even
Yeah.
more because the anger is not going to solve anything.
Right. This happened to me when I worked at Starbucks. Like we had a customer come in that we gave him the wrong pastry and he threw it back at us. Right. And then like when he did that, it just pissed me off so much in that moment. But even after he left, I continued to think about it and be pissed off about it.
Yeah, you're like thinking of all the ways that like you would have reacted if it happened again and shit like that. Yeah,
Yeah, just
yeah,
like how dare this guy do that? And I just kept thinking about that. And eventually I got annoyed of being angry and I got I got angry about being angry and I got stuck in this loop
he's
un,
like go home and punch a hole in the wall,
until I was like, wait a second, what the hell? What am I doing?
right? Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
a good way to think of that as well is, especially if someone's been, because I think that's natural, especially like growing up. If somebody were negative to me, like they were angry to me or rude to me, it'd be my automatic reaction just to be do it back to them.
Mm,
Um, whereas now it's I mean obviously I can't do it all the time. Sometimes I still let shit get to me, but try and be like, well, they must be a pretty unhappy person to behave like that, or they
mm,
must have a pretty fucked up life or have made some bad decisions to behave like that. Because no one wants to, I don't think many people would want to be a complete piece of shit who screams at a Starbucks employee because
mm.
they gave you the wrong muffin or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, Um, but yeah, like if something like that happened to me, my instant reaction straight away is to get angry. But like I used to let it fester more, but now I try and think about it. It's still hard to do, but I try and think about it more now and think like,
Mm.
well, I'm not going to get into some battle of the egos with him and like be angry back at him. Like, fuck it, just let him have it. He's probably a miserable person.
Hmm. Like in that case, what really pissed me off was like he didn't throw it to me, but he threw it at the ladies that work with me, and they're like older ladies, like like in their 40s or like 50s, and he threw it at them, right? And then like I think just like in my family's culture is like you don't do that to people older than you. And I just
Yeah,
saw this dude just
yeah.
like throw like a bag with a muffin or something. Like I didn't order that. He just threw it at them and went back to onto his phone to text somebody. Like it was so normal for him.
Yeah, yeah. Miserable, unhappy man. Like, there's no way he wakes up in the morning smiling. Like, he probably wakes up every day miserable to behave like that.
That's true. Dang, and that's totally his problem. Like I shouldn't have to.
But there's also something inside you that, like, there's something inside me that thinks, like, yeah, that dick probably does that shit all the time, and someone needs to teach him a lesson. Um,
Mm,
yeah, that thought comes into my mind all the time. But then it's like,
mm.
what am I going to do? Am I going to beat him up in Starbucks and get arrested or something? Like, nah, just let go.
Yeah, and also even if you go and you kick his ass, like it might just make him just more bitter at the world, just make him do it more next time.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Dang. I wonder how that guy's doing.
Probably fucking awful.
Dude, probably. There were some customers that came through there they were just miserable every day, dude. But they still came every day to buy coffee.
Yeah, of course. They've got to feed their addiction.
Yeah. Crazy, yeah. So there's some notes here that I have that says, well, one of them says meditation can help us to see through the illusion of the self, and also seeing through the illusion of the self can lead to greater freedom and happiness. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure, really. I think that's something he's gonna talk about more in chapter 4.
Mm,
I think it relates to probably self and ego a bit. Um, you can see through all the bullshit and you
mm,
can see what you actually desire and understand what makes you happy as well. I think he touched a little bit on gratitude during meditation,
mm.
too, that humbles you, that helps you see through your ego and see through yourself.
This kind of makes me think about like recently I was trying to figure out a way to word this in a way that makes sense. And like the one thing I could think of was like it's like what if like this illusion of the self is just my nervous system trying to protect me from things that it has learned to be dangerous, right? So
Sure.
like like
Yeah.
what if meditation is just a way to like to heal and like to calm down my nervous system.
It could, yeah, because I mean, evolutionary, like, you picked up things that you think would be dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they're subconscious and they're suppressed. And like we are saying, you're not even sure why you react that way sometimes. But
Mm.
with meditation, you can take time to ponder that.
Mm. And there's some like human fears that like apparently we all have that like we've gotten from like our caveman ancestors, like the need to be accepted, right? Because before like we would have needed that, right, to be accepted by our tribe so we can
Yeah,
survive in the wild.
yeah. Like, hunter gatherers are the same physically and mentally as you and me. Um, and they lived in tribes up to 150 people.
Mm,
So you actually had to be held accountable and you had to be a good person because everyone knew each other. And if you were a prick, then they'd kick you out of the tribe or they would hit you on the head with a rock. Whereas
mm,
now there's so much anonymity. You're living in a massive city. No one's going to hold, you get to Starbucks, you throw a muffin at someone, you get in your car and drive off. Like, no one really knows who you are.
mm,
Um, Whereas, like, if his parents saw him do that, they're probably going to think, wow, like, maybe, I don't know, it depends how good his parent, it depends what his parents are like, but you'd like to think they'd think, wow, that's poor behavior by my son.
mm,
But, he could just, and that's what would happen in a tribe.
mm. Even also like imagine if you like subscribe to some kind of like social group, and now you feel like, okay, I have to do everything that they accept, because if I break their rules, then they'll kick me out of the tribe, and that must cause some fear too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you're almost that's I think that's almost a death sentence.
Mm.
If you're in a tribe of 150 people and you get kicked out,
Mm. So
yeah,
now let's like fast forward to 2023. Let's say you're in America, and let's say you live in a place that's like large, pretty much democratic, but you actually think like a Republican. Um, it must be scary to like freely talk about your opinion with people in your society.
oh yeah, for sure. Like American politics is crazy.
Right, and vice versa. If you're a Democrat living in a Republican area, then it must feel like kind of yeah, scary to just talk about, like have a conversation about that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I wonder if that there's something about like aligning to a certain political party or a certain ideology. That's probably a tribal thing as well. People like to get
Right.
behind it and come together, and it makes people feel good when they're like, "Oh yeah, we know we're right, and they're the enemy over there."
Like it feels good for a human, like when he or she belongs to some kind of group, right?
100%, 100%. Yeah.
And I guess that's because of our caveman hardwire. I guess like it's I don't know.
Well,
Like
we're social creatures, aren't we?
yeah, yeah.
The worst kind of punishment is solitary confinement.
Mm.
People go insane because you need to be social.
I always imagine, what if you put a monk in solitary confinement? He would probably just meditate for like 10 hours.
Yes, probably. I mean, like, yeah, somebody who's used to sitting with their own
Mm.
thoughts would definitely do better. I mean, like, if you could chuck a monk in solitary confinement and then you can chuck like some TikTok obsessed teenager into
Oof.
solitary confinement. I mean, I know who I'd place my bets on.
Right. That kid would be tortured as fuck.
Yeah.
Jeez, I keep thinking about this hardwire from our caveman days, because I heard that casinos, they study like these old human survival skills, and they apply these things into their games
No way. I
to
think you might have.
trigger those
I just
things.
listened to this on a podcast recently. I think it was Michael Easter. Was that the guy who you listened to?
Was it on the Joe Rogan podcast or somewhere else?
Uh, no, I didn't listen to it on the Joe Rogan podcast. I
Mm,
listened to it on the Diary of the CEO. It's this guy. He wrote a book called Scarcity Brain and something else. Is it the same guy?
I can't remember. It might be. It might be.
Yeah, because he was saying, yeah, there's that the way casino games and junk foods and loads of the vices
Mm,
are designed prey on our evolutionary brain where things are scarce, so get as much of it while you can quickly.
right.
But now things are not scarce, so with gambling it shows with what does it say, like when you see the reel spinning around, it
Yep.
like triggers in your mind that like, oh, I've almost got it. That's like a primal thing, like
Yeah.
I've almost got the kill.
Right.
um and it's scarce because you don't see it that much.
Right. Like if it's like lemon, and then like strawberry, you're like, oh, I almost got it. Let me try again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And he was saying something like let's say you spend $1 and you win 50 cents, you'll still feel good, like, oh, I won something.
Yeah, because he said something like each spin now is faster than a second or something like that. I think he said
Mm.
something crazy on the podcast that I listened to. So people will literally sit there at casinos, just bang, 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 putting gambling away all their money.
Yeah. And the guy said like there's like special casinos that they're not for the public, they're for experiments, like to bring people in to like watch how they react to each game. And the people who invest money in those like experimental casinos is like, of course, casinos, but also like it's like top companies. I don't know if in the world, but for sure in America.
Mm, mm.
Because you see this now, they use it in social media, like let's say you post like 5 videos, you'll get a little reward, like, hey, good job for getting the achievement of posting 5 reels or whatever. Like
Yeah, because I mean, it feels good as well when you post to social media and then you get loads of likes,
Yeah,
even if they're from people you don't even know. Like gives you
true,
that dopamine hit.
true. That's true because I feel it in myself too. Like when if I see like a little notification thing, it's like, oh, I want to open that and see what it is.
Yeah, you're like, hell yeah, like validation. And then if you post
True.
something that no one takes any notice of, you're like, fuck. It's like telling a shit joke at a party.
And I feel like what my brain or whatever, my nervous system, whatever, enjoys the most is getting comments. Like if I see like likes, it's like I'll get a little hit, but if it's a comment,
Mm,
it's a bigger hit.
mm, mm. Interesting. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like it's because yeah, we have this brain that's the same as 200,000 years ago,
Mm,
which is anxious and all the have cravings and all the other things, but we're living in a society that's just so different.
mm. Dude, I saw this documentary on chimpanzees and it showed like in their chimpanzee tribe, after catching an animal from the hunt, only the chimps that are friends with the leader get to eat and the other ones get pushed away. So it's like do you think this like hardwiring of a need to be accepted comes even like before humanity like was created?
Yeah, probably. Because I mean, modern humans have been around for like 200,000 years, but there were more primitive humans before that.
True.
Um, like Neanderthals they hunted in packs or whatever, or groups. I don't know what the right word is.
Mm,
Yeah, and then I think if I'm remembering right, modern humans drove out Neanderthals because they were better at coordinating with each other.
mm,
But yeah, I think most humans, primitive humans, yeah, because like we're pretty shit animals. We're pretty weak, but we have big brains and we can
mm.
cooperate with others. If we didn't, I don't even know if it's a need to be. I suppose you need to be accepted in order to have a cohesive group that is ultimately going to keep you alive.
Right? Like now it doesn't matter anymore, really. But our
No,
brains think
now
it
you can.
does.
Yeah, right. Now, yeah, yeah. Now, if you wanted to, you could just sit inside all day watching Netflix, ordering pizza. But because your brain is still primitive, you're going to
Mm,
feel like shit because you're not being socialized. You don't have a challenge. You don't have a reward,
mm,
but you're getting all of your needs met. So you can still live, but you're just
mm.
going to feel like shit.
Like now that we're learning all of this and we're kind of like rewiring ourselves, it kind of feels like we're we're letting go of this like really old wiring from the cavemen, maybe even from like previous humans and previous primates and stuff. Like, do you think that now we're like evolving as a human species? Well, some humans.
Yeah, I'd say so. But it's like such a slow process. Like technology changes so quickly.
Mm,
But evolution is so slow, especially with such a big population.
mm,
Um, that we're never going to catch up to this rapidly changing society fast enough.
mm. And also, there's like no incentive from like governments to teach us this skill either. I think they want us to keep consuming things as much as possible.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
So they benefit
Yeah.
from us not learning this stuff. That's
If
crazy.
everyone realized, oh, actually, I don't really care about buying all this fancy stuff, and I just want to work a few hours a week, and I just want to hang out with my friends. Like that is not good for the economy, and that's not good for
Right.
governments.
Dude, what do you think about this? Like Joe Rogan talked about that someone gave him a Rolex as a gift, right? And he
Mhm.
realized that every couple months it was like 5 minutes off. So he was like, "What the hell? I'm gonna take this to the Rolex whatever store and tell them to fix it." And then he took it there and they said that's how Rolexes are. That
What?
every couple of months the time just it's like too fast. So you have to take it back to the store for them to fix the the hands. So then what's
That's
the
ridiculous. I thought that was going to be a story that somebody had given him a fake Rolex. Um, but because of like his confidence and who he was, everyone just assumes that
mm,
it's like a thing of status, even though it costs like $100.
so then what's the purpose? So like now that we know that Rolex watches can't actually keep time, then what's the purpose of even having a Rolex watch?
It's a status thing. Like all watches tell you the time. We don't even need watches anymore because everyone's got a phone in their pocket.
Yeah.
It's 100% a status thing.
Mm.
Um, it's just a way to signal to people that, I've got high status. I can acquire things that allow me to buy this watch.
Like, do you think it's the same with NFTs? Like just selling them stuff that's super expensive so they can say like, "Oh, I bought that."
Yeah, it's just a flex. Like everyone knows that NFTs are a worthless piece of shit, but if you can say like, yeah, I don't care, I just dropped 100K on this ape
Mm.
NFT, you're like, that's just a way for you to, you put it on your Twitter or whatever everyone was doing. It's a way for you just to flex and be like, yeah, I got money.
Yeah, I've been thinking of ways like how to sell to people who are, let's say, like multimillionaires. I guess you just tell them like, I guess you can't afford this thing, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I can. Let me buy it."
Yeah. Or like it's um if the people they compete with desire to have it, then all of a sudden they'll have that same desire to get it as well.
Yeah. So we should think what to sell to those guys. Then just retire. Actually, I do like my goal is to life coach, and then I would aim like for yeah for those kinds of people
Yeah,
because they would be okay
just
with paying like ideally like life coaching would be paying like 2,000 US dollars per client per month.
that's insane. That's like a full salary to some people,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And the cool thing is
it's so
somebody will pay
crazy.
that.
It's like the people who can afford that by society's definition are successful,
Mm,
but then they're paying someone $2,000 a month to help them sort their lives out.
yeah,
It's insane.
and for them that money is nothing. It's just like take it and just solve this
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me,
yeah,
and then I'll be like, okay, I
yeah.
will.
I wonder if there's some placebo in there as well. Um, like, oh, I'm paying for expensive life coaching. I'm doing this thing once a week. Like, I feel much better now.
Like I'm the Rolex now.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like, I'm really taking care of my brain.
uh, but now but I want to be an actual functional Rolex and not just be a fucking fake piece of
I
shit.
mean, if it works, it works. Like, if you actually help them, great. But
Mm,
if it's placebo as well, and they're getting helped, like, does that mean you
mm.
helped as well?
All right. I think like also like this podcast like the purpose of finding like the overlapping and everything, it's actually gonna help me with life coaching.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I feel that. Yeah, we got about like a minute left. Do you have any final thoughts on chapter 3?
No, I mean, it was interesting. I'm looking forward because we've been learning a lot about the brain. I'm looking forward to reading chapter 4, which is meditation.
Mm,
Because I didn't really put the two together, meditation and the brain, as much as I should have. So reading this has been
mm.
pretty interesting.
I would say like this year meditation really saved my ass because like I just had like an overwhelming amount of like noise in my mind, mostly guilt, just like debilitating guilt I'd never experienced ever. And
Mm.
meditation did help with that because meditation basically is just your mind taking a shit.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, bro. Awesome, man. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, always. We'll have to read chapter 4 and then do another one.
For sure, for sure. Oh, I'm doing the audiobook. It's really helpful, actually.
That's sick. Nice. Cool. Catch you
All right.
later.
See you again, bro.
Bye.
Peace.